Hello and welcome to Math 151, Business Calculus, Section 91. My name is Matt Lathrop. I'll be your instructor this semester. Um, I'm a full-time professor here at Heartland Community College. Been teaching this class online for a few semesters now, each semester making some new improvements, which I hope work out well and hope this ends up being a good semester for you. To get things started, I do want to walk you through some basic information about the course, talk about the syllabus, talk about some different pieces of the course you need to kind of be checking regularly, just to make sure you're aware of what the expectations are for this course and what we're going to be doing from week to week. So the first thing to let you know is, whenever you log into our course, the first page you'll be logged into will be this announcements page. Each time you log in, you're going to want to just check this to see if any new information has been posted. This is where I'll be putting up information about course updates, due dates for the week, things like that. So just make sure when you log in, you're checking that. Also on this initial page, over on the right-hand side, you're going to see this My Results box, My Progress. This is going to be some information about your overall standing in the course. So as soon as you log in, you're going to be able to check your overall score. Right now I've only completed one assignment, so my overall percentage is pretty low and I only completed one homework question. So hopefully you'll generally see a much larger number than that. But when you log in, you're going to be able to see your overall score. You're going to be able to view your progress across different categories: homework, quizzes, tests, participation. So a quick way just to check your standing in the course to see how you're faring overall. What we want to do now is go ahead and skip ahead to the syllabus. And again, start talking about some of the expectations for the course and some of the general information. So my contact information is listed here at the top of the page, including my office hours, email, phone number. Phone definitely works to get in touch with me, but if you do have questions, I would encourage you to either email me or stop in my office hours. Those are going to be the most reliable ways to get a hold of me and get some responses. But absolutely, if you have questions, feel free to contact me at any time. We've got the catalog description provided for you. If you haven't read that, it's a good idea just to take a look at that. But I am going to focus on this last sentence here. Business and social science applications will be stressed throughout this course. So we're going to spend about a half to 2/3 of our time talking about the theory of calculus. So we have to introduce how to calculate limits, calculate derivatives, calculate integrals. So we'll be spending some time, those will be our three major topics throughout the semester. We'll spend time talking about the theory of those, how we evaluate those different types of problems. But then we'll spend the remaining portion of our time, between a half and a third of our time, looking at application questions. So taking these concepts from calculus and applying them to real world situations in business. Also social science, but we'll see a primary focus on business. There are some required materials for this course. One is online access to My Labs Plus, which if you're watching this, you're already logged in. But you will need to purchase an access code for this course. When you start getting into the homework assignments, you'll see that a temporary access code is provided for you to get you access for the first 21 days, but you will need to eventually purchase a code to continue accessing this course for the semester. You'll also need a graphing calculator. A TI-83 or 84 is recommended. However, if you have a different model, I would encourage you to contact me, just check and see if that will work. I will tell you that TI-89s won't be allowed in this course, but there's some other models that aren't as common but can still be used in this course. The other thing you'll need, which is completely free, is online access to Wolfram Alpha. It's a website that we'll be using that can handle some different mathematical calculations. So we'll be using that when we get into some of the application topics in the course. You also have the option of buying a physical textbook. MyLabs Plus includes a digital copy of the text and e-text. So buying a physical textbook is just optional. If you want one, you're more than welcome to head to the bookstore and get one, or from some other source, but there's no requirement that you actually have that physical textbook. Some other information here that I'm going to pass over that I would encourage you to take a look at, specifically the learning outcomes, just to get an idea of the different specific topics that we'll be covering. But we can see from the course outline, again, we've got sort of three major topics in this course. We're going to talk about functions and their graphs, which will include limits. From there, we'll move on to derivatives, techniques for derivatives, applications of derivatives. Then we'll look at integrals, different types of integrals, applications of integrals, and then multivariable calculus. So once we've covered derivatives and integrals, then we'll come back and hit both of those topics again, but with multivariable functions. But that'll come later. We can worry about that a little bit later on. This use of technology section is just explaining that this course is going to rely heavily on technology. Make sure you read through this information, but as a couple of highlights, malfunctioning or lack of access to technology is not necessarily going to be considered an acceptable excuse for missing assignments. You're taking an online course, so the expectation is you have a personal computer or a way of accessing and working on this course. If for some reason your home computer is not working, you do have access to Heartland's computer lab in the library, so that's a backup for you. But you should always have some plan in mind in case you temporarily lose internet access at home. So you want to establish those backup plans now before something becomes a problem. Your attendance and participation are going to be important in this course. Those are going to be tracked and graded based off your participation in discussion boards each week. So each module that we cover will have a discussion board tied to it. Those discussion questions are going to relate to the applications that we'll be covering in this course. So there will be some topic that will be thrown out, a prompt for you to reply to, and a requirement for you to reply to one of your classmates' posts. Those have to be completed by the deadlines, otherwise you'll receive zeros for those assignments. Since they're collaborative, responding with each other, those really have to be completed during those due dates when everyone is participating. If at midterm it's deemed that you're not actively participating in the course, you will be withdrawn. Hopefully this doesn't end up being the case for any of you. But if you fail to access the course for 2 consecutive weeks without notifying me, if you fail to participate in more than 2 discussions, or if by midterm you haven't completed 60% of assignments, you will be withdrawn at midterm. Again, I hope that's not the case for any of you, but just to make sure that you're aware of that policy. A couple of sections explaining homework and quizzes. Homework and quizzes will all be completed through MyLabs Plus. Can be completed at home, open book, open notes. Homework can be submitted late, but a 10% penalty will be applied. But that means you should still be able to earn at least a 90% on any homework assignment, as long as you're willing to put the time into those. You have an unlimited number of attempts at every question, so I would encourage you to put the time in. The better you master the homework, the easier the quizzes and exams are going to end up being for you. Each module will end up having 2 quizzes. There will be one quiz that will be focused on the theoretical concepts that we're introducing, a second quiz that will be covering the application topics that we cover. So there will always be those 2 quizzes for each module. You initially only get 1 attempt on those assignments, but if you end up completing all of your homework with a 95% or better, then you'll open up a second attempt at those quizzes. So something to keep in mind or to motivate you to get some high scores on those homeworks if you need that additional attempt. There will also be practice quizzes available to help you review and prepare for each of those quizzes. We're going to have 3 regular exams throughout the semester, and each of those will be split into 2 parts. These are required to be taken in the testing center. The theory portion will be covering the theory of the class, so making sure that you are able to, by hand, work out the steps of the different calculus topics we've covered. Just something to note here, the first exam, no graphing calculators will be allowed. You will be able to use a basic 4-function calculator, but for exams 2 and 3, as well as the final, you will be able to use that graphing calculator. But with the first exam, having the graphing calculator sort of simplifies some of the problems. So to just ensure that you're able to work those by hand, that's going to be a restriction for that first test. So with the theory portion of the exam, you're going to be required to demonstrate the ability to show your work for those problems. That will be bundled in as part of your grade. They'll also be graded for partial credit, but you have the potential to lose points if you're not showing enough work to support your answers. The application portion of each test will be making use of Wolfram Alpha, that free site, to take care of any of the mathematical calculations required for the problem, and instead your focus on those types of questions will be, well, generating those results using Wolfram Alpha, but then providing correct interpretations. So you'll be graded based off coming up with the correct results using that software, and then interpreting that information correctly to explain what that means in a business context. There will be practice exams available for both parts of the exams, so you'll have time to practice and review that information before you actually head into one of Heartland's testing centers to take that test. The final exam will be cumulative. There will only be a theory portion of the test, meaning you'll be able to use a graphing calculator, but won't have the application emphasis, like those application exams we just talked about. Again, partial credit will be awarded, but failing to show your work can result in a loss of points. So when we hit the final, that'll just be another thing to keep in mind. There are going to be 2 opportunities throughout the semester to improve a low exam score. So you'll be able to improve your score on one of those application exams by taking an optional 4th exam. So that will be an additional application test over some new topics. So you could use that exam grade to replace a lower exam score on that application portion. That will be optional. You're not required to do that if you're content with your scores at that point. The other option is you can replace your grade on a theory portion of an exam by using your percentage on the final exam. The final exam is required. You have to complete it in order to receive a passing grade in the course. But if your percentage on the final exam ends up being better than your score on one of those theory portions, I'll replace that lower exam score, giving you a boost at the end of the semester. This table has some information on different dates and deadline, or different dates, the grading structure for the course. Something I want to point out here is the breakdown for discussions, homework, and quizzes. Those make up 30% of your overall grade, meaning your discussions, homework, quizzes, those week-to-week activities actually make up more of your final grade than the final exam itself. So completing discussions, participating in those discussions, completing your homework, completing quizzes with strong scores is going to be really critical to boosting your overall grade. So those are important assignments, so I throw a lot of weight towards those. There are a couple of important dates to be aware of. Days the college will be closed, final day to drop, last day to withdraw, and of course, spring break. The FERPA statement here just talks a little bit about my contact with you. I can only email you through your Heartland email address. So if you contact me via email, just make sure you're using your Heartland email address or sending me messages through MyLabs Plus. And then the last thing here is, or second to last thing, is our weekly schedule. You'll just want to take a look through this. This is going to give you the breakdown of what sections we'll be covering week to week. But we have a pretty steady pattern of covering 3 modules and then an exam. So modules 1 through 3, then we'll hit exam 1, modules 4, 5, and 6, we'll hit exam 2, and so on. So just take a look through that calendar so that you know what's coming up. We also have the dates and times for the final exam. The final exam will open up on May 8th and be due Tuesday, May 12th by 11:59 p.m. or really by the time the testing center closes. The rest of the information here is some general information for students just pertaining to any class at Heartland. Has information on tutoring services, counseling services, disability support services. If you do have a documented disability, please feel free to contact me about that so we can make sure that we're setting up the appropriate accommodations for you before you get into a testing situation. But again, I would just encourage you to read through all this information in the syllabus. If you have any questions about the expectations, just contact me, let me know, be happy to discuss those with you.